The next speaker is, this time we are moving to a more practice-oriented talk. And this talk will be given by Dr. Richard Munang. And we are looking very much to listen to your talk, which is titled Leveraging Climate Action to Shield Natural Resource Base from Emergencies, Lessons from COVID-19. Dr. Munang, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jude, for that amazing introduction, and thanks to all the speakers who have presented not just amazing presentations, but with a lot of information that will help pave the way to build back better and different in Cameroon, and with lessons that could be taken even across the African continent. To all the distinguished researchers and invited guests, all protocols observed. I will start off with this African proverb, which goes, "Those that knowledge is like a garden, and if it is not cultivated, you can't harvest it." This African proverb analogizes the setting we have today. We are here to deposit into the knowledge bank on post-pandemic recovery to enrich it, to serve us better as we engage in nation and continental building in our various capacities. For those who might not know, I am a native of Cameroon. And one of the most priceless attributes that we know about Cameroonians is their resilience and indomitable attitude. Yes, it is. These attributes are the hallmark of our mothers, of our fathers, of our brothers and sisters. I saw these precious attributes in my village mates when I was growing up in a small village of Jinquin in the northwestern part of the country. And later in my schoolmates, as I went through the schooling system, these golden attributes are what has taken many through the dark clouds of the COVID-19 pandemic. And as we gather here today and as we speak, the pandemic is compounding challenges in the continent and also in Cameroon. In Cameroon, the 2.7 million food insecure persons, just in this 2021, COVID pandemic has impacted livelihoods where incomes of over 90% of enterprises and 60% of households have declined. For example, as we've already heard, containment measures that included transport bans and border closures made a steep decline in demand, resulting in up to 80% drop in tomato prices and producers' incomes. Huge milk losses have also bankrupted processing units. On average, these containment measures meant a 50% increase in food losses across the entire African continent, with Cameroon being among the impacted countries. This is just one dimension. Amidst these difficulties, the resilience of the Cameroonian people has shone brightly, as seen with the development of local solutions driven by our young people, the youth. Young people have developed a significant number of applications designed to make life easier for the general public, contributing to developing the digital economy. For example, with the restrictions on in-person classes, a two-tree application developed by a Cameroonian youth, the first of its type in the entire African continent, should not only make us proud, but should make us talk about it. This digital platform has been provided not only a great relief for information exchange, but also an opportunity for students, parents, teachers, and head of institutions to be able to learn. Still,
recording in
area
progress.
That innovations have shown brightly is the provision of medical ventilators. While these ventilators, as we know, are a critical part of the COVID-19 care, their access to the majority remains a tall order. They are available only in major hospitals and for the few who can afford up to about 10,000 francs per hour per course. A young Cameroonian innovator developed the Oxynet solution, which allowed hospitals in both cities and rural areas to produce their oxygen from natural air. These are in addition to ventilators and vaporized and sanitizing door, all innovations developed locally during the pandemic. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the reason I'm bringing this up is the one thing that we need to note is that these local solutions have arisen mainly from the country's vast informal sector. This sector provides livelihoods for 90% of the active population and contributes more than 50% of the Cameroon's GDP. This sector is Cameroon's middle class equivalent. Yes, it is. And as we know from economics, the strength of the middle class in the developed economies underpins their competitiveness and growth. And as a country, Cameroon is indeed blessed to have its economic structure around such a resilient middle class equivalent. It therefore means that if we need to turbocharge and supercharge this middle class, the informal sector, so that we can drive accelerated growth and ensure that pandemic recovery can happen. We cannot ignore this. This, however, cannot happen without fully containing the elephant in the room: climate change. Climate change is projected to cost Cameroon up to 10% in economic losses in the short term and 50% in the long term. In inclusive natural resource-based sectors, and especially agriculture, climate change is projected to drive a loss of about 40% in incomes. This sector occupies a high pedestal in driving the country's climate resilient post-pandemic growth while nurturing the natural resource base. I say this because while extractive-based natural resource sectors accounts for only 3.6% of the GDP and much less in employment, the agricultural sector stands out for its inclusiveness and diversity. The sector engages up to 70% of the population and is responsible for up to 27% of export earnings, 15% of physical earnings, and over 20% of non-oil GDP. The sector is also underscored in the Cameroon's green and employment strategy as the engine sector for economic growth and job creation towards the actualization of Vision 2035. Another critical natural resource-based sector that can drive inclusive competitive growth opportunities is forestry. Avoiding deforestation can earn the country between 400 million to 1.6 trillion US dollars in cumulative carbon revenue just in 9 years from today. That's the data we have. Every year, the country can earn up to 1 million and to about 7 million extra from enterprises around non-timber forest products, whether we're talking about medicines, wildlife, and other biodiversity and ecological resources like water, healthy soils, and we name the rest. For example, reforestation of the Waza floodplain in the semi-arid north has the potential to add up to 2.3 million every year in income opportunities for the local communities who are engaged in diverse natural resource-derived economic activities, be it farming, be it livestock, be it fisheries, among key areas. One of the drivers of forest degradation is deforestation. Cameroon is losing about 100,000 acres of forest each and every year due to several reasons, including harvesting for domestic energy. Over 70% of households depend on wood fuel. In addition, firewood and charcoal generates an estimated 304 million US dollars to the country's economy, equating to about 1.3% of the GDP, and creates up to about 90,000 equivalent full-time jobs. This then implies that the alternative to reverse this degradation must be socio-economically driven. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, sustainably managing and maximizing the value of these inclusive natural resources hold great promise in driving climate resilience, in driving inclusive, competitive socio-economic growth to power the country's post-COVID-19 recovery. How this can be actualized through the climate lens is our own urgency of now. It is our imperative of now, and I will leave you with the following key points to inform your research efforts. The first is we must leverage climate action. As we speak today, we must leverage climate action to make not only entry points, but also to ensure that at least we can actually be able to build climate resilience as we build back better. If we don't do this, then definitely whatever thing that we do, we might not be sustainable in the long run. And this is something that we need to take very seriously. But leveraging climate action as a driver of enterprise value enterprises in inclusive natural resource base is key. We just about weeks coming out of COP26 in Glasgow, and the outcome of this COP26 paved the way to the full ambitious implementation of the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Cameroon is one of the only 19 African countries that have gone on record as having submitted more ambitious, updated, nationally determined contributions. 4 sectors have been prioritized to underpin this increased ambition: agriculture, forestry, energy, and waste. How climate action can be leveraged as a source of value addition solutions in these sectors and the creator of inclusive enterprise opportunities is a critical area to look. For example, COVID-19 containment measures have driven up to about 80% dropped in tomato incomes in addition to post-harvest losses. This compounds the tomato post-harvest losses, where the country is already losing up to 40%. However, at the same time, tomato processing and value addition alone can generate up to 1.5 million jobs every year for the country. But we know from the work we are doing that decentralizing simple climate action solutions of solar dryers is an accessible area that has been proven capable of increasing incomes of informal traders by up to 30 times through increased shelf life of perishables and reduced post-harvest losses. In Cameroon, cassava farmers have increased earnings by up to 150% by leveraging solar dryers through work which we did in Colmangang, in Yaoundé. Using these simple solar dryers to dehydrate their cassava, using micro hydro to power processing of the cassava to flour, and connecting with information communicating technology, digital marketing tools to link value-added produce efficiently to market have helped not only to reduce post-harvest losses, but put more money in more pockets. In waste and forestry, waste recovery to fuel briquettes provides an alternative cooking fuel up to 2 times cheaper than charcoal while being smokeless to prevent indoor pollution, and hence avert the 7,000 deaths that Cameroon suffer every year because of household pollution. These numbers are not just mere statistics. These are human lives. And these briquettes provide an accessible enterprise area to tap the over $300 million a year currently expended in charcoal to avoid deforestation and set the country on a track to earn up to $7 million on annual benefits from its biodiversity resources. These incomes are what will be leveraged to drive the post-COVID pandemic recovery. And research, therefore, should focus on streamlining and unlocking the social, economic, cultural, financial, and policy enablers of this paradigm. That takes me to the second point, which is maximizing inclusive finance. One of the rare advantages of the Cameroonian economy, as I mentioned earlier, is that it is structured around the informal sector. This sector creates the majority of jobs and contributes up to 50% of the GDP, which is a higher tier compared to the rest of the entire African continent. I work across all the 54 African continents, and I can say Cameroon fabric, locomotive of economic development, though we don't talk a lot about it, is far more better than even the country in which I'm sitting in today. One of the sources of this trend is the elaborate structure of communal cooperatives, popularly referred to as Njangies. The first cooperative opened in Cameroon in the 1920s. These have become part of the architecture of local financing. Cumulatively, the share of savings to loans in Cameroon cooperatives is a ratio of nearly 1:1. It shows that for every $1 saved, $1 is loaned, and is an indication or indicator of a vibrant savings and investment culture among the country's cooperatives. In addition, at least 75% of the population belongs to at least one Njangii. How these Njangiis can be tapped to drive savings and investments in value-added enterprises in Cameroon's natural resource-based sector is a critical strategy to tap into the post-COVID growth. Through our work in Uganda and also in Cameroon, we've shown how cooperatives can leverage intangible assets of social capital to guarantee members and cooperate around assessing value-added solutions of simple climate action solutions of solar dryers. We have seen how members can guarantee each other to assess briquette making machines, simple innovations that have been created by youth to start briquette enterprises. The structure of cooperatives offers a structure of accountability and traceability, of actions to lower risk and enable access to value addition assets. Research, therefore, should prioritize unlocking key enablers, still in the social, economic, cultural, financial, and policy enablers that will be needed to expand this paradigm and make it a norm and not the exception in Cameroon. That takes me to the third point, which is tapping into our youth ingenuity as drivers of the above paradigm. You cannot address any challenge whatsoever, whether we generate new knowledge, if we ignore our youth. If we ignore our youth, it means we are ignoring our powerhouse. The youth are Cameroon's powerhouse. They are Africa's powerhouse. They represent a formidable strategy to bring research findings and innovations to scale and create climatepreneurship opportunities that address the informal sector's productivity needs, which is an urgent area. The informal sector already creates livelihoods for 90% of the country's population and stands out as the country's economic locomotive. Engaging young people, regardless of what they do, regardless of the academic background, will ensure local innovations tailored to the needs of cities and communities, ensure that they are developed and tested. But for this to happen, we need two words: skills retooling. Skills retooling is needed, which entails improving, which entails refining and adapting young people's skills to align with tapping economic opportunities. For example, the number of people without access to clean cooking has been rising in Cameroon. As a result, as I mentioned, 7,000 deaths are associated with indoor pollution every year in the country, driven by unclean cooking. How young people can become drivers of non-capital intensive enterprises that bridge this critical clean cooking access gap for the informal sector is key. We have developed an incubation approach called innovative volunteerism, where willing young people are structurally guided and inspired to retool their skills and turn their passions into profits. We are guiding them retool their skills to just convert agricultural waste into fuel briquettes to replace charcoal. These young people are not only providing a climate-friendlier alternative to an on-demand need, but they are tapping into an opportunity that is worth $20 billion across the continent. And in Cameroon, it is worth 304 million, just replacing charcoal. That's an opportunity. That's how jobs will be created. It is therefore very, very important that research should study the modalities and actualize this symbiosis between the youth and the informal sector, two of the most significant actors in Cameroon's economy. That takes me to the fourth point. We must unlock a bottom-up approach to policy implementation. We know, yes, policy is the biggest driver of change, but we need it differently this time. Cameroon, like the rest of the entire African continent, is a leader in policy. Yes, they are. But policy alone will not bring transformational change. Apart from the nationally determined contributions that are indicated, that Cameroon is one of the countries, 19 African countries that have submitted ambitious nationally determined contributions. Cameroon has up to 5 pieces of laws and policies dedicated to climate change. The missing gap in all this is implementation. The missing gap in implementation arises because of a lack of empirical evidence of proven successes that can be used to recalibrate policies to target incentivizing areas that have been proven to work. Research efforts need to continuously prioritize new knowledge that can remove barriers to ensure data and information on successes from grand actions driven by the youth and the informal sector are seamlessly feedback to inform policy prioritizations towards enabling the expansion of such proven successes. And that takes me to the fifth point, which is we must cultivate purposeful passion. And this aspect is very important because it's a soft aspect. It's not something that is taught in school. It's something that we must be able to inspire each and every one of us to usher in whatever thing that we do, regardless of capacity. Passion is the fuel that moves ideas into real-life solutions. Regardless of who we are, if we lack enduring passion, we will run out of steam in no time. The most significant gap that I've seen across the entire African continent today is the passion and inspiration gap. Yes, it is, which is needed to drive meaningful transformation for people and planet. Without passion, you throw money at every problem and waste it and end up with no result. Without passion, we will be talking about issues, generating knowledge that the population will not take it up. Without passion, yes, we will do research, but it will end up not being even taken up by those who need it most. Passion is the real winner because regardless of what we contribute, if it falls on passionless people, then no transformation will occur. As researchers, as practitioners, we must all cultivate purposeful passion towards offering practical, contextual, inclusive solutions to Africa's transformation. The big 4 areas I have shared today needs research input from all dimensions, from social, cultural, financial, governance, markets, and technical. And let the research, amazing research you do, be driven by the desire to offer these contextual solutions that touch many lives in communities. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who may not know, I am a native of Com. And one of my favorite proverbs reminds us that when you harvest a garden egg, know the branch. This discussion cannot be completed before we harvest some inspiration from our continental founding fathers. In the mid-40s to the late 50s and on to the early 60s, self-appointed men and women across the continent who espouse unshakable unity with a clarity of vision were joined ideologically by timeless values of selflessness and character of humility to create opportunities for many across the continent. They did not postpone this call for a day in a hope for elusive perfection. This is the foundation of values-based leadership that we all must identify with and champion wherever we are to drive socio-economic opportunity for our people. It is leadership premised on selflessness and taking personal responsibility to touch many lives and do that which is right with what we have, not what we are thinking to get. Today, we urgently need tailored research, which stands as the master key to drive socio-economic resilience. In the circles of life, it happens that a unique challenge befalls the generation, yes, which must be solved to guarantee the future and safe existence of future generations. Climate change is the challenge of our generation, and we can seize the opportunity through research to influence policy, to influence investments that touch many lives. It is my sincere hope that we will pull together and leverage climate action solutions to turn challenges into opportunities as we put poverty on the run and prosperity into the cockpit of progress. That way, we will shield our natural resource base from future emergencies like COVID. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Minan. Thank you so much for that very rich perspective and also for identifying potential lines of research that we all can embrace, not just in the context of Cameroon, but of course in Africa and around the world. After all, they always say everything is connected to everything else. And we cannot isolate Cameroon and try to resolve the problem of Cameroon when the world is facing challenges. So this has to be collective. Otherwise, the solutions from Cameroon will be made less effective if it is not connected to what is happening in other parts of Africa and the world. So we are grateful for this very rich perspective.